to imagine that somehow you're there already, that maybe you're teaching this stuff, maybe you've come to the realization that if you said these things, they would have ultimate meaning. That would be a nice thing. And that gives you a new way of being for yourself, with yourself. So I invite you to do that. And if it means you have to ignore everybody else and have your own stuff happening, that's good. If it means you have to laugh at my jokes, that's good. That's a good thing. But to do that, I invite you to please, I invite you to please, thank you, money. Thank you. Pete, you want to do the honors?
Sure.
So this is called a mandala offering. We imagine the entire universe, and that's the core or the center. It's called Mount Meru. It's got 4 continents or 4 directions of space, which are these. Yeah, it takes some time to figure out. Pete can show you. But as we do some chanting, how are you doing?
First finger and second finger across.
Yeah. The way that it feels for me, the longer I do it, is that, that's not what the universe looks like. So, what it feels like for me is as I close my eyes and I say the words, is that you build a universe out of this raw material. From this very center spreads out your entire mandala, your perfect universe. And sometimes I imagine this very world covered like an energy is going around the world, transforming every mountain, every animal, every being, every flower, every ocean. Everything's being transformed to a state of bliss, from suffering to bliss. And sometimes I make a goal that it feels like I'm in some Technicolor movie that's from the 50s, but like Jason and the Argonauts, I think. And then sometimes it's beautiful. It spreads through universes and the rest. And it's really to habituate your mind to say, what's perfection feel like? Because your mind is thinking of it. And then you offer that to whatever that being is, or that thing is, that personified thing is, that turns on teachings in you. The teacher, the guru, there's something in you for them that gets turned on. You're offering it to them in exchange for learning.
Sashi Jichin Metotram Virading Shin Yunde Impadi Sangye Shindu Nite Vadi Dropen Nanda Shinla Jipasho Idam Viratnamandala Kamyatayami Sangye Shidam Soki Choknanda Janchu Vardu Dakmi Kapsuchi Daki Junyen Gipe Sonanki Rola Ganchir Sangye Drupasho Sangye Chudan Soki Choknam Lam Janchu Bardu Dakmi Kapsuchi Daki Junyen Gipe Sonanki Rola Penchir Sangye Drupasho Sangye Chidam Soki Choknam Lam Janchu Bardu Dakni Kapsuchi Daki Junyen Gipe Sonanki Rola Penchir Sangye Drupasho.
Okay, so let's do a quick meditation. And what I want to invite you to meditate on today, which is today's homework, is we've been listening to this very long, drawn-out course on past and future lives. Master Dignaga, presented through Dharma Kirti, Pedro J, all presenting the argument that the mind experience does not come from the body, that it comes from previous moments of mind, arguing that there's a prior moment of mind from the very first moment you had a conception or a consciousness in this life. And so the whole argument up to this point has been based, and even all the proofs of last week have been based on spending time in the opponent's ground going, okay, let's look at the four elements or the chemicals that make us up. And is it in there? Putting all those chemicals together. And we've been arguing and spending time in the opponent's quarter going, let's look at that, let's argue that. And there's some arguments that were given and they take time to cook. My job is not to convince you that when you leave this class, you're like, I believe in future lives. It takes time to have a different experience, different perception, different thought pattern around where does life and experience come from. Remove ourselves from our own prejudices, be able to see the world beyond what we were just taught. It's like learning to think in another language. You just can't go to one Chinese class and then all of a sudden you're fluent in Mandarin and understand all the cultural implications of that language. You spend time in it, you soak yourself in it, and you're changed. So this course is just to wet you a little bit. Yeah? I'm not expecting people to walk away and believe in past lives. I've been trying to figure out these things for 17 years. And I can't remember the exact moment where I flopped over into, that totally makes sense to me, and this doesn't anymore. I can't tell you when that happened, but I know it didn't happen the first 5 years. I can guarantee you that. And I have some certainty about it that I didn't have before. On the contrary, it's free. So we've just spent some time on the opponent's court, and the opponent is like a Western person saying, it's in the body, come on, the body dies, the mind dies, you're finished, you are finished. And today you'll notice, after one more argument in that quarter, you'll notice Dharma Kirti, sorry, that's too Australian, Dharma Kirti, yeah, Dharma Kirti.
Dharma Kiwi?
Yeah, that's a little Australian, right? Yeah, you'll notice Dharma Kirti, right? He's like this philosopher and that. And you'll notice that he'll turn the tables and he'll taunt the opponent today. And so the meditation is going to be about that taunting. He'll say,
oh, that's right up your alley.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I'm very happy about this class. Because he'll say, in fact, it's the opposite of what you've been saying. I'll give you the punchline of the class. He goes, it's the opposite. The elements are there because the mind provides a basis for them. It's like, oh, you're telling me that the body stops flopping around and therefore mind stops. And so therefore the body is the basis or the principal cause for the mind. It's actually the opposite. No mind, no body. And they're like, what? A little distraction there. So I want to meditate a little bit on that. I want to get you to think in reverse for a second and see what would it be like. How could it be possible for consciousness not to be the near Lengi Q, right? Not to be the principal cause that flops over into that. That's not what he's saying. He's taunting them with that. But he's saying, what if without mind there is no elements? So he's spending time alluding to consciousness without the six senses. Mental consciousness, as opposed to eye consciousness, ear consciousness. So I want the meditation to be really focused on a few sounds, or taste like sensations, and start reducing them and see if there's anything left. Yeah? And then that'll give you some. Does that make sense? For that point, to say, well, could that still exist if I remove the six sense powers, the six sense consciousnesses? Does that make sense? Let's just play with that. Here we go. So take a comfortable seated position. The key here is that your back is straight and your vertebrae are stacked like coins, one on top of the other. You feel a pull up from the crown of your head like something is suspending you. Do a quick scan of your body, making sure any tension is released at your base, your thighs, your hips. Tuck in your tummy just a little, enough to support your lower back. Begin to breathe quite relaxed through your nostrils. Turn off the air conditioner. Don't laugh. The smile is good. Your shoulders shouldn't be leaning forward. Should be quite relaxed, pushing. Your arms relaxed. Your neck is sort of free because your chin is tucked in just a little bit. And relax all the muscles on your face, your brow, your eyelids. Allow the corners of your lips to smile just a little bit and see the difference around your nostrils with that. And just breathe. Bring your mind gently to the sensation of the breath. Follow it all the way in through your nostril. Then follow it all the way out as far as it goes. And then follow it all the way back in. Just allow your mind to be pressed tightly against the breath. Gets distracted, just bring it straight back. Find any part of the breath that you can press your mind against. It could be the temperature, it could be the flow. So long as your mind is on the breath, you're on point. I'd like you to bring your mind to your teacher if you have one, or think of the most evolved being you know, and invite them to please come and teach you. And as soon as you think of them, they appear in front of you, as strong and as solid as you can make them. They're seated right in front of you, facing you, knees almost touching. There's an inertia between you, a gravity between you. It's very personal. And all you feel from them is complete and utter love, unconditional wanting to help you get along your path. Create something of beauty around them for having come, and offer it to them. Think of the highest quality you can imagine in them. Maybe it's patience, maybe it's the ability to speak just the right thing at the right time, some kind of wisdom or love. Think of what it is about them that inspires you to get better. then that should drive you to a want to clean up anything that's stopping you from getting there, from gaining that quality. So think back at the last 24 hours or 2 days, and just pick one moment in your life where you could have been better. Maybe you were angry, frustrated, lazy, whatever it is that was a state of mind opposite to the one you're trying to generate. The strongest moment in the last day or so that brought some negativity into your life or that of others, and observe it with wisdom. Recognize that more of that will produce more of the same. So you generate some kind of regret inside of you. I wish not to do that again if you could control it. So you make some commitment that the next time that opportunity arises to be angry or frustrated or mean or whatever it is, that you would refrain from doing that. And have some confidence that you could follow through with that commitment. And somehow that lessens the impact of that state of mind in your continuum. So you feel a little freer, not in need to carry any burden. Imagine that you could do that for all the negativity that follows you in your mind. Imagine that you could do that, remove any negativity of other people's minds, freeing them to just focus on the goodnesses in their world. And so now I invite you to review your last day or so and look at your most perfect state of mind, the most beautiful thing you did to offer to others or yourself, an opportunity to be a better you, a more enlightened you, a wiser you, a more loving you. And think back specifically at a moment where you did that well. And see how happy you can be in that moment, knowing that you have that capacity in you. Feel some joy for having done goodness. Recognize that that state of mind can create more of that state of mind in grading. And then rejoice that there are other people who are also doing goodnesses around you. Be happy for them. Imagine that they are showered with the results of those actions, that their lives begin to turn more and more to bliss, less and less obstructions. Where you all reach a tipping point where happinesses and abundance and bliss are more the norm than the exception. And with that state of mind, ask your teacher to please always teach you, regardless what's in front of you, whether it be a challenge or an opportunity, a good state of mind or a negative one, but that you may hear their voice and you may find a lesson that can help transform you. ask them to always stay by your side, and as you ask them, you notice that they rise up in their cushion and turn around facing the same direction you're facing and shrink to the size of a thumb and are placed beautifully just at the crown of your head, glowing light, always by your side. That concentrated knowledge and wisdom. So now I invite your awareness of sound, interpreting the drops of rain outside. I'd like your mind to focus on the differences between the drops. See if you can differentiate when a sound starts and when a sound finishes between the drops. See if you can hear a sound behind the rain. Maybe it's the thunder. See if you can hear an ambience behind the thunder and the rain. It's like a white noise. See if you can jump from the ear consciousness, the sense power of the ear, interpreting or transmitting the differences in pitch, and your mind, your consciousness, making links and transforming them into sounds that have meaning for you. See if you can listen now with an ear that might have a different mind interpreting the change in pitch. If you didn't know what rain was, and this was the first time you heard those sounds, could it sound like something else? This was the first time you became aware of that fluctuation in pitch. What would you call that? How would you cognize that? How would you interpret that? Now I'd like you to bridge from the ear consciousness to the sensing consciousness. Where does your body feel the contact with the cushion? Where does it feel the difference in temperature? The warm parts of you, the light parts of you. See if you can identify one spot in the entire frame of your body where the sensation of touch is prevalent. if you didn't have a name for that sensation, you just interpreted the warmth or the vibrance, whatever that tactile thing is that you're sensing. What if you didn't know what it was? How would you interpret that? What would you think it was? And the same for sight and taste and smell. Imagine that all this data coming through the sense powers was observed raw for the first time without prior knowledge. What would it be? Where is the interpretation happening and where does that come from? How do you know to interpret certain signals in a certain way? And so you should find the interpreter now, the mind that's been making pictures, creating links between pitch and canter, sensation and touch, and it's been forming mental images, complete in 3D. And wanting to move on to the next thing and the next thing. I want you to focus on that part of your mind, your mental consciousness. And imagine things were in reverse. Imagine that that mental consciousness is actually producing the sounds as you hear them. That in fact they are streaming from you to it. The same for the sensation of touch. That sensation is in fact being projected from that mental awareness to a sensory experience. What if it was that way? I'd like you to return back to your breath. In your body here. And then you'd like you can open your eyes. Thank you for being good meditators. That was nice. Last class, so, what was that like? Was that okay? What was the meditation like?
It's a good question.
It is, right? But yeah, it's like, right, oh wow, that's a nice description. Hi. Hi. Look at you, little wet. Un poquito mojado. Okay. So Dharmakirti is arguing with the Charvakas and he's saying to them, here are 10 ideas that I'm going to throw at you to challenge the idea that you have that somehow the mind, the three things he talked about. The mind was one of them. What were the other two? Breathing and the sense powers, so life force, and the mind. Physical stuff and mental stuff. They're saying when the physical stuff stops, the mental stuff stops. So his basic argument is like, that's not true. Think of these 10 things. So last week we talked about, take those three, breathing, living tissue, and the mind. They did not come from something not similar. So life came from life, cells came from cells, and mind came from mind. Because the baby, remember he said the baby has them now, it must be from something similar that happened before. So it's got a body, physical stuff comes from physical stuff, cells got together, mother and father, physical cells produce those cells. But the mind, I can see that baby screaming, he's distressed. He must have had a first experience. That's caused by something similar too. And later on he'll argue that the physicality is not similar to mind, because mind you can't touch, can't speak, can't think. The next one, I'm just recanting the first 6. Take those 3, the mind, living tissue, and breathing, life. They did not come from the 4 elements or the... Are you comfortable with the 4 elements as I described them, as the energy behind the things that are produced, the energies of hardness? Are you comfortable with those enough as an understanding? They did not come from the 4 elements because they came from something earlier of a similar type. And this is really the essence of his whole argument. It's like, a cause, unless a real cause, a Nirlambhikyu, the main cause, if you remove that, then this thing never happens. Everything else that might be related most of the time is just a contributing factor. It's the sunshine, it's the water, it's the warmth, it's the nutrients, but no seed, no tree. No nutrients, shitty tree. No water, slow tree, stunted tree. Yeah? So there is a relationship between the body and the mind. And when you get to the higher teachings, that actually becomes really important. But at the sutra level, at these teachings, we're going through these ideas, so each of them make you think about something. So he's saying, look, life, this thing that we have, that thing you just experienced, mind in particular, you just experienced mind interpreting sounds. It didn't come from chemicals put together. It has to have come from something similar of an earlier time. And then remember the rule for the Nirlambhikyu is that seed must necessarily disappear to flop over into the result. And if the body is the basis for the mind, then the cell should piss off when you get a mind. But he didn't say that. But anyway, he should say that. Say that. Take those 3. They did not come from the elements alone, because the elements are not living beings. Remember, he then made a little joke going, look, if living stuff, if life and breathing and mind is dynamic stuff, then are you telling me that elements table are little tiny men and women sitting there that flop over into big men and women? He's joking with them. He's like, they've got to have little people inside their atoms. But they're not little people. That's argument 3. The mind is not similar to physical matter, nor limited to physical body. The mind can go on to China, etc. Argument 4 says, take the mind. It is take the mind now. It is not something which does not cross into the next life, because the mind's ability to continue itself. Remember that one? That the mind has this habit. This moment leads on to the next moment. You get angry now, you carry on to that. You relax a little, you carry on to that. You learn numbers and words, and you make sentences, and you carry that forward. And For your entire life, mind is able to do that, flop from one moment to the other. Mind produces mind, good state of mind, good state of mind. Yeah? Biased state of mind, biased state of mind. In fact, our mind gets so powerful at that produces a whole reality. You know? Whatever industry you're in, whatever your main thing is, you make films. Yeah. I bet you're obsessive about the way you watch films. You see films in stuff, and in films you see film in stuff. You see the editing, you see, I don't see that. But you've been habituating your mind to do that, and your mind is producing that experience every time you see it. So the ability of the mind to produce the next state of mind based on the quality of it is here its entire life. And you're saying that something that was there continuously for 70, 80 years, 108 years for something I'll share with you in a second, suddenly stops. You know, if I want to augment that argument, I could say even matter. You know, matter will turn into more matter. The body will turn and rot and be eaten by worms and turn into poo, and then it turns into more dirt, and then it turns into matter, more stuff. So you're saying the mind's capacity to continuous, and I love that argument. I think that's a really healthy argument. But for that, you have to think about, is mind different to body? And in the West, we don't. You know, we think somehow it resides in. We share the Charvikas view. I did for most of my life. It's somewhere in the brain, right? My mind is in my brain. And that was a hard thing for me to split at the beginning. So then argument 5 says, take the elements, they are not caused. They are not the cause of the three. So he's saying this in reverse, because there should never be a case where the elements fail to cause these three. In other words, if you get just the right amount of the chemicals that produce us, and you always put them together, you must always have a mind, a consciousness appear. And that's not the case. The sixth element, I think, the sixth argument was, take the elements, they are not the cause of the three, because multiple elements could cause multiple minds. So you could say if you put a bit more of that, you should have two minds that are more of this. So it's like there's 6 things that produce one thing. So he's saying, if you have 20 teaspoons of earthy water, you would have 20 minds. This leads us to class 9. Did we do quizzes or homeworks or not really?
No, we do them during the break.
We can do them during the break. Okay. Here comes argument number 7. Don't forget, these are just 10 arguments, and we're trying to identify what we believe. There's a point in this. What do we think about our life comes from? This is the point of the class, right? This is Dharma Kirtis, or one philosophical argument. I don't know it in depth enough to share it with you. I just know what I was talking. What I can do is encourage you to just question. What do you think, really? Because if what we think prevents us from understanding where it really comes from, then it doesn't matter what we do in this life. We're not going to address the core issues of what's stopping our consciousness to evolve if we're addressing the wrong thing. Not only that, the other implication is, if we think it's the elements, if we think our consciousness and our mind is in the brain or somehow in the body, like the Charvikas, then it's sort of okay to screw up this life, because then we're done. See you later. So there's and in the West, where everything is instant and temporary, you know, like I just need my next fix. I think we have that tendency. So it doesn't really matter. You know, that's why we have garbage all over the place, and things are discardable. There's no consequence, like in Japan, for example, where you think 7 generations ahead. I'm just here this life. My mind, my consciousness, all my afflictions, all my shitty states of being, all my aggression, all my distress, all this stuff, I don't go away. I'm just party, drink up, it's good. And then it'll go away. But if you had to have this for another 30 lives, and revisit this like a merry-go-round, and each time it gets stronger, and you're responsible for it, then that's a different thing. All of a sudden it's like, I really want to fix that shitty experience that every time I get into a specific thing, it might be a relationship, it might be a friendship, it might be work, it might be whatever. Every time I get into that, I encounter my same afflictions, my same stoppers, my same angers, my same limits, my same, and that is preventing my happiness deeply. You'd want to stop that. If you had to have it for another innumerable lifetimes. And so it's an important thing to consider. Argument 7, he says, take the 4 elements, they are the basis for the sense powers. Take the 4 elements, which are the basis for the sense powers, living tissue, etc., the 1 core. They are not the material cause, the Nirlangikyo of the mind, because you can damage the sense powers and you don't always damage the mind. So he's saying, I think he uses the example of that bodhisattva that removed his eye. There's this bodhisattva, highly evolved being, encounters this demon in disguise, and this demon disguising themselves as a normal person that needs something, says to the bodhisattva, I need your eye. And the bodhisattva is very happy that somebody wants something from the demon. So he puts his finger in his socket using the eye. And the demon goes, I'm a demon. And stupid demon. He wants something better. Right? And he throws the eye on the ground and squashes it. Yeah. And then the story continues that bodhisattva went back to the monastery or whatever, and everybody made fun of him forever because he only had one eye. And he would always say back to them, with that one eye, you have 2 eyes, but with that one eye, I can see more scripture than you can ever see with 2. I understand scripture. But the argument he's posing to the Charvikas, right, which is a being can go through some distress. Yeah, you can have your arm chopped off. You can have a baby and completely stress to no end your sense powers. And if you damage it, chop it off by 20%, if it's the Nirlangikyo, if it's the principal cause, if the sense powers are the principal cause of mind, consciousness, awareness, you must necessarily damage the mind as much as you've just damaged the body through giving birth, through chopping it half an eye, for pulling out an eyeball or something. You have 10% less mind because you've just chopped it. That's the cause of it. So he's saying it's not the cause of it. But you can damage the sense powers. Think about it. You can damage the sense. You can damage the thing that is supposed to be producing mind. If you chop that up, no mind. So that's retarded. It's not the case. In fact, people go through stressing the sense powers, giving birth an example, and then a radiant instantly after.
This doesn't help the idea that mind is located in the brain.
Because when you remove the brain, you have no mind. Is that what you're saying?
Because I can chop off my arm, but I haven't affected the brain. And if I can...
But the sense powers, according to the thinking of the time of this whole Eastern thinking, is that the sense powers, there's nothing else of being other than your sense powers. Every tactile part of you, including the brain, is one of the tactile parts of you. Every the cells at the back of your eye, the ear, etc. That the brain has the receptors for those is just an extension of the sense powers. In fact, I mean, we believe that, right? We take out the brain and the mind stops. That's an argument. We say that. That's exactly what the Charvikas is saying. We've got no evidence. If they're separate things, the mind and the body, what if consciousness was just locked in there? Locked around there somehow. And so the vehicle through which it expresses itself is damaged. The brain. I know that if you smash the brain a little bit, you can retard someone a lot, right? If you get the brain to... but the mind doesn't get smaller, is what he's saying. These people are still, these beings are still able to think and conceive. And I mean, look at Stephen Hawking. I mean, his sense powers are somehow damaged. But his mind is It's brilliant. It's just getting that non-physical stuff to transmit its thing through the sense power, through the body. So his argument is that if you're Stephen Hawking, you should have much less mind than the average Joe, who's very healthy, six sense powers, very healthy.
It's not saying it doesn't affect it though, right? So you can have like phantom limb syndrome, where a part of your body has been amputated, but your mind still feels pain, and then you can do some optical illusions,
Yeah.
right? And then trick your brain into thinking that you have that limb back. Everything goes together. So.
It's hard to think about the separation because it's so intricately linked. And that's not, we're not saying it's not intricately linked.
Right, he's not saying that.
Yeah, it's the two things that come to mind. He's saying that it's not the principal cause. Do not think it's the physical stuff that turns into the conscious stuff. The fact that a mind can create an entire limb and have an experience as if it's got that limb in a clear, light, expansive state. I mean, it's not connected to it. It doesn't spring from it, which is what he's saying. It's not a principle. And the only examples that come up for me to explain the difference, because once you sit with the difference and immerse yourself, you see that it's actually a bit of a relief. It's like, mind comes from something else, from mind. Then you start working on different things. You remember I shared with you my story of when I choked up in Argentina, and I had that, if I don't do something now I'm going to die, I better do something. My sense powers were completely stressed. Like, if I hadn't had any training, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to the hospital. I would have done the whole blah blah. But my mind was actually quite at peace observing this thing that previously I could have been completely freaking out about. And I got to remember what it was like to freak out about physical sensations, and now my mind does not freak out about that particular physical sensation. My mind was actually in a beautiful state of awareness, whilst my body was in a distressed state. Separate things. Didn't come from it. So that for me gave me my thing. The other example I could give you is, I can't remember who it was it in America? The Americans or was it the Aboriginals? Whoever saw horse and rider come on board from, they thought it was the one creature. Yeah, they thought. Quetzalcoatl? Well,
The
Mexicans,
the Aztecs, okay. And so you have this thing, it's like, I feel that we're that way in the West about body and mind. We think that because they are rider and horse and always moving together, we think they are the one creature, whereas they're not. They're separate things if you've got some insight, and then behaving towards that double creature as the separate creatures is probably helpful for you if you want to communicate to the human on the thing. But on first sight, you'd be quite reasonable to think that. Or seeing an orchid grow on a tree. You'd never seen orchids growing all over trees. This is perfect. This is beautiful tree. I call them the Italian tree. Any Italians? Because they're so hairy, right? So there's these trees in the tropical far north of Australia, and they've got these orchids growing, and each orchid just has like a long leaf that way. But these trees are massive, and the orchids are all over the trunk and every branch, and it just looks like this hairy tree, and it's magnificent. They've been there hundreds of years. If you'd never seen that tree, you'd think that was the leaf of the tree. It's a symbiotic relationship. The orchids can't grow not on that tree. But it's not, they don't come from the tree. They never did. They're different plants. They're different things. So that's the only way I think about it. So just listen to the arguments and let them sit. And next week we're actually going to talk about the last few arguments, which is where he flips it on them and he says it's actually the other way around. Charvaka said the body is the unique cause. Gyapa, Bodhisattva. Proof number 8, he says, let's consider the main mind, that part that I tried to get you to towards the end of the meditation, not the one that was just sounds, not the one that was just feelings, but the thing that, the clearness and awareness that was interpreting and doing that stuff. Consider the main mind. Here's where he flips it. He goes, the mind provides the basis for the sense powers because it projects them. It has some sound, some auditory thing, and then it goes, I now have an image about what that is, I have an experience about what that is, I have an experience that is a sensation, I have an experience that is a thing. So he's like, it's the other way around, guys. The mind produces your external awareness. And he says the mind's karma projects the next life and its physical form, and therefore the basis, it does not say, this is an important thing here, he says it's the basis of the senses. So he's being very naughty logician, because he didn't say it's the cause, because if he said it was the cause, he'd be in the same problem that that he's trying to argue with the child. What does that mean? If he said it was the cause, if he says your mind is actually the cause of your sense powers, because it projects them onto the next life, and I'll explain in a second. If you said it was the cause, what was the
mind would go away and make
mind would have to go away. Yeah.
Just to be some bit here.
Let's do it.
Because the mind, it's a mind stream, but doesn't every instance of mind then actually go away between every other instance of mind?
Do you ever have any other instant of mind than this instant of mind?
Is this a continuous instance of multiple tiny instances of mind, or is it one?
Which one?
Yes.
What?
Which one?
Which one what?
Which state, which instance of mind are you talking about?
The one that just died.
No. I don't know about that one. I'm hearing it.
Right.
Do you see?
No.
No. Am I having one of those moments, Pete?
Yeah. No. What's a good question, but it's like, that's why I think stream is the analogy, because it's like, where's the stream? Is it there? Is it this piece? Is it the whole thing? Is it like, where is the stream actually?
Yeah.
Right.
You could have the same conundrum exploring that question as you could just where's the mind.
But then the idea of is it the mind the cause? Because if you can just argue that if it's a stream, it's an analogy. Right? So if it's an analogy, it's not actually the right description. So it's not what it is. And therefore, if the mind is the cause and the cause needs to disappear, then perhaps the mind might be disappearing. It might be.
How many levels of reality do we talk about in this course?
3.
Okay, there are 2, right, Paul? What are they?
What about the 3?
Yeah, no, we can talk about the 3, but they're just the 2 I was trying to hit at. Things function in deceptive reality. That's our experience. Yeah, and to try and explain an ultimate thing through deceptive reality is a problem for everybody, scientists included. Which are our modern witch doctors. So, looking at the idea of cause and effect, the closer you get, my experience, this is not anywhere here, okay, so I have to just share that it's my insight. And the closer you get to an understanding of the ultimate from the relative point of view is where the relative starts breaking down, like the analogy turning into, is it really the cause? Because if it's the cause, at what point does it flop over into the result? Yeah, because we have the time problem. And so I think it was 2 classes ago where we alluded to that. I think you weren't here and everybody understood it. but what beautiful about just mentioning that is that there's I can't remember the school that says that meditation alone, trying with relative reality to understand the ultimate. At what point did this moment flop over to that moment? Or at what point did that seed turn into a seedling? Yeah? Or that meditation where you slice things by half, and you never get to, is one way of perceiving emptiness, one way of perceiving the ultimate, because of it's the crack in the matrix that alerts you that someone stepped into the matrix. Yeah, it's like all of a sudden you're seeing the code, and then reality rips apart. So it's that question that I don't think you're going to get a satisfactory relative answer. Like science will not ever satisfactorily stop. Because as soon as they find the smallest string, they're going to have to dissect that in half. And it's got no end. But this is where it's magnificent, and this is where Joseph Campbell comes in for me, who is my first teacher. Yeah. You step outside relative when you go there, when your brain goes can't handle this. And what comes to me from Joseph Campbell's teachings is that statue of Shiva in a cave near Bombay. It's a massive statue of Shiva with three heads: an angry head, a happy face, and a neutral face. And this is time, past and future, and this is now, and this is the present, and this can be infinite, can be timeless, like the turning of the earth is. And I've used this analogy before. If you look at the turning of the earth, you've got day and night, past and future. But if you look at the axis which is creating that turn, if you try and analyze where does the turning come from, is it the past, does it flop onto this, etc., you will come to the core of the axis. And that can't move. How does that produce movement? So you have relative experience of time and space, relative reality, and at the core, which is untouchable through that experience, you have ultimate. There's no time. It's infinite. There's no past or future at the very center of the core of the axis. It doesn't move. It can't move. So trying to understand ultimate through the relative must necessarily, I think, bring you to what Arjuna experienced going into battle, which is undivided. And in this division, the abyss opens up, and you see the code of the matrix. Then your job is to come back and inform your local folk. You got it all wrong. Don't try and do it that way. It won't help you. And you come and inform the people of your time of your hero experience, your insight into the world. So questioning is the way to do it. Expecting the answer is what will get you there. Anyway, next week we talk about his idea here, where he says it's the mind. Let's consider the main mind. Mind provides the basis for the sense powers because it projects them. So he's talking about who's familiar with the Wheel of Life as the painting. It has this 12 links of dependent origination. It's about death, holding on to things, right? Link number 2 is immature karma. It's just the karma we do every day. The idea of planting karma. Link number 2, it's a potter, a guy making pots, fresh karma, all the time, making fresh vessels to hold our experiences. And we are accumulating those karmas all the time. Our minds are creating our minds. Our minds are creating these pots of karma. On every movement of thought, every word, intent, and every action. So that's link number 2. And then we go through other links. And he gets up to link number 10, which is Penjakile, which is the projecting karma. that one of those karmas gets so strong, and that's depicted by a pregnant woman just about to give birth, gets so strong that it is the projecting karma that creates your entire continuum of one lifetime. There is one specific karma. It's the karma that says to me, this is Hector, and has always said, I am me. That's the Penjaki, I think it's called. It's link number 10. It's one of those karmas so charged up through the things that charged it up are strong forms of desire just before death. Yeah? A strong sense of attachment and desire, a specific type of desire and attachment that has grabbed those karmas and collected and turned one of them in specifically into such a nuclear bomb. It fuses one of those things that are about to pop into a mega pop because of the types of desire created just before death, because your body is dissolving and you get a generation of desire and attachment that's specific, and that turns on to that one idea that says this is Dorsey. Even though that thing over there doesn't resemble anything the 5-year-old of that. It's a different thing. But the continuum, the thinking that we are that thing, not only that, when I'm 100, I'm not going to look like this. And I think I am this. That one kind. That's what he's talking about here. It projects that whole perception. Your sense powers are imbued with that idea because of that one project. And we'll talk about that next week. But he didn't use the word cause because then he'd have the same problem that he's trying to.
In the notes it says cause.
I know,
yeah.
But then in the audio he clarifies it. Yeah.
Well, I know the notes are done by a student.
Yeah, a student. Yeah. Geshe Michael was very clear to say he makes sure that the word he uses is not cause. Yeah. Cool. So let's go for proof number 10. Says, let's consider the mind, or that stream of awareness that we call our consciousness.
Sorry, was that 8 or 9?
9.
That was 9.
I thought that was 8.
No. Number 8 was, let's consider the main mind. Mind provides the basis for the sense powers because it projects them.
Right. And then
7 was, take the 4 elements, which are the basis of the sense powers. They are not the main cause of the mind because you can damage the sense powers and you don't always damage the mind.
The part about the throwing karma was the end of 8, right?
Yeah.
And so now you're going to 9.
I'm going to 9.
Okay.
Am I allowed to yet?
Yes.
Yeah, just check. Let's consider the mind, that stream of consciousness. It is the cause of the mind. It is the cause, it's your last comment. It is the main cause of the mind to stay here, because what keeps the mind going is the mental karma of past lives. So that thing that I just described. Yeah? So, which I'll go into more detail when we talk about links 2 and 10 next week. So the question he's posing is, why does the mind stay? Like, why is it here? Why do we have... If you grabbed a picture of the 5-year-old you, and that body has an energy behind it that is growing and deteriorating, right? And you grab the mind as a separate thing. And that's got some energy behind it that is growing and growing and growing, and sometimes degenerates, but not always. Some people die fully conscious. There's no denouement at the end of a mind. People die with undamaged sense powers, so healthy humans. What he's asking, what did that? Why is the mind staying? Why is it not disappearing? What else can I tell you about that? He's asking, why are some people, old people living and some young people dying? If it's the sense powers, it's something else happening. Actually, I think that's a good time for me to show you this thing. Check this out. Tell me why this woman's alive. She's a ex-Holocaust survivor. Or no, I guess she is a Holocaust survivor. She can't be an ex-Holocaust survivor. Right?
She's not doing it right now.
She's not doing it right now.
She's not surviving right now.
She's 108 years old. Consider her mind. You can see her body's changed, okay? Consider her. Can you see?
Yeah.
Alice.
I was brought up in a highly intellectual
In Prague. In Prague.
And Kafka was a good friend of our family.
Is that right?
The whole Jewish people from the whole world came because Kafka to me and wanted to listen about Kafka. He was a very well-known writer, you know.
Of course, Franz Kafka. Everybody knows him. He was a friend of your family. Why is it that you are so optimistic?
Because the world is beautiful. Nature is something extraordinary. Music is something phenomenal. People who have no relationship to music, they are poor, they don't know what is the most beautiful thing in life in art. It's better than painting and writing. Music brings you in another world.
Who are your favorite composers?
My favorite composer name of young.
This is a human. This is a mind. This is a mind locked in a body that's not working so well. That's clearer than my mind. So she's 108. So Dharma Kirti is saying here, they're not the cause. They are interrelated. Yes, I'll agree with you. But that mind that you just saw there, after the Holocaust, after seeing her family killed, after seeing her people destroyed, sitting there going, music is something phenomenal. What is that mind? That's joy in that. And that's all expansive. And it's a separate thing to the body. Yeah. Thank you, Alice. Like her sense powers are not in the best of shape, right? But they're
Good.
108.
108.
Yeah. They even agree. Let's take a quick break while my computer freaks out, and be back at 9, and we'll finish on time. Yeah.
And I'll bring the quizzes out.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Enjoy. Be peaceful. Blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. Phenomenal.
Do, do.